Well, hello and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. The title for today is The Pressure is On. Well, today or this month, May is National High Blood Pressure Education Month. And I know in this picture here, it seemed quite risky to be up in the sky, but I have to say high blood pressure is even riskier when we see that high blood pressure equals a higher risk of stroke. Nearly 1 in 6 American adults with high blood pressure don't know that they have high blood pressure. Normal blood pressure is below 120 over 80, and high blood pressure is 140 over 90 or higher. Have your blood pressure checked and keep it in check to reduce your risk of stroke. I say the pressure is on, and this is an urgent matter for us to address high blood pressure. So let's get into a little bit more about high blood pressure. I am Deitra Dennis, your guide here today. I'm your registered nurse, national board certified and health and wellness coach through the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaching. I'm a professional team member with American College of Lifestyle Medicine, ambassador of African Heritage and Health with Old Ways Cultural Food Traditions, certified Food for Life instructor with Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and the proud owner of Full Circle Health Coaching LLC, a health and wellness solution offering evidence-based and culturally relevant services that specialize in disease prevention for women of color. So on today, we're going to define high blood pressure. We're going to describe how to measure your blood pressure at home, list the risk factors of high blood pressure, describe the consequences, and we'll also identify how the Black or African American community is disproportionately impacted by high blood pressure. We'll describe the impact of COVID-19 and high blood pressure in the Black or African American community. We'll also discover how heart disease is not, I repeat, is not a part of heritage. And we'll list some African heritage inspired tips for heart health. As always, I give a disclaimer. Every detail shared during this webinar is strictly for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for advice from your healthcare provider or physician. Again, this information provided cannot be used to make a diagnosis or treat any health condition. The information is not advice and should not be treated as such. So let's get into defining what is blood pressure. So here, blood pressure is the force of the blood pushing against your blood vessel walls, and it is measured in millimeters of mercury. High blood pressure, or HBP, you may see it written out in the acronym as HBP, which means the pressure in your arteries is higher than it should be. And another name for high blood pressure is hypertension. So when you go to the doctor, when you're going to have your blood pressure checked, usually they will, in order to measure your blood pressure, you have a rubber cuff that's wrapped around your upper arm and is slowly inflated. And when the air is slowly released, the stethoscope is used to record 2 blood pressure numbers. So you have 2. The first one is systolic. Again, that's the top number or the higher number, and it's the pressure inside your arteries when the heart contracts and pumps blood into your arteries. And then you have your diastolic blood pressure, which is your bottom or low number. And this is the pressure inside your arteries when the heart is relaxing and filling with blood. And a way to remember that, so systolic is the top, diastolic is the lower number. So you can remember South Dakota. So that's a way to remember that the systolic is the top and diastolic is the lower. So in 2017, the guidelines for blood pressure was changed, and that was in collaboration with the American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiology, because it was identified the more controlled the blood pressure is, the less complications or consequences of high blood pressure. So that is why the guidelines were changed in 2017. So as we look at the chart here, the normal blood pressure reading for systolic is less than 120, and diastolic is less than 80. Elevated is 120 to range of 120 to 129, and diastolic is less than 80. High blood pressure stage 1, systolic of 130 to 139, and diastolic of 80 to 89. High blood pressure stage 2, systolic 140 or higher, and diastolic of 90 or higher. Hypertensive crisis. This is when you definitely want to consult your physician immediately or go to the emergency room. This is when your systolic blood pressure is higher than 180 and diastolic is higher than 120. This is what we would call in the medical community as stroke level blood pressure. Okay, so we already talked about this being an urgent matter on that first page in the introduction. So as we keep moving, it's important for you to, whether you're diagnosed with blood pressure or not, to really check your blood pressure more than when you're going to the doctor. You know, you may go to the doctor once a year, maybe once a quarter, but you want to be able to determine or check your blood pressure more often than that, because as you may have heard, high blood pressure is a silent killer. So it doesn't give you any signs or symptoms, usually not. Some people may have some as indicators of high blood pressure, but again, it's considered a silent killer. So when you're checking your blood pressure at home, or even if you go to a CVS, I know we're shelter in place now, so at the pharmacies, you may not be able to do it. But if you have a machine at home, this is a way to accurately check your blood pressure reading. Okay, so first you want to prepare. How do you do this? You avoid caffeine, cigarettes, or any other stimulants 30 minutes before you measure your blood pressure. Then you want to wait at least 30 minutes after a meal. And if you're on blood pressure medications, you want to measure your blood pressure before you take your medication. You want to empty your bladder beforehand, and then find a quiet space where you can sit comfortably without distraction. Now that you're prepared, we'll move over to the position. How should you sit? How should you hold your arm? All of that is important as well. So first off, you'll put the cuff on your bare arm. Do not put it over a sleeve. On your bare arm is how you want to do that, above your elbow at the mid-arm. And then you position your arm so that the cuff is at heart level. You keep your arm supported with your palm up and with your muscles relaxed. Try not to be tense. Try to be as relaxed as possible. You will sit with your feet uncrossed and keep your feet flat on the floor. And the last part is you would keep your back supported. So that, will help you have an accurate blood pressure reading. So again, you prepare, your position, and then now you're ready to measure. So what you would do now that you're all in position, rest for 5 minutes while in position before you press the start button on the machine. And then you would take 2 or 3 measurements 1 minute apart. Keep your body relaxed and positioned during the measurements. Again, sitting quietly with no distractions during the measurement. Avoid having conversation, watching television, the phone, or any other devices, because that could, you could get excited and your blood pressure could be higher than it actually is. And then lastly, record your measurements when you're finished. And keep track of it so that you can take it to the physician when you go. one thing I want to mention, sometimes when going to the physician office, not everyone has this, but some people have what's called white coat syndrome, meaning there's a little anxiety when you go into the doctor's office and you see a person in the white coat or someone in the clinical setting. Your blood pressure reading may be higher than normal. So this is again why it's important to be able to monitor that on your own, because you have a little bit control. You want to be in control of your health. Okay. Now, some risk factors of high blood pressure. There are some things that are beyond your control, and there are things that you can control. So, things that are beyond your control are genetics, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the heritage. And then age. The older you are, the more likely you are to have high blood pressure. Gender. Men have a greater risk than women until age 55, and after age 55, women have a higher risk, and this is because of the hormonal changes after 55. Race. In the Western countries compared to white Europeans or Americans, Afro-Caribbean or Afro-Americans develop high blood pressure at an earlier age, as early as 18. And it is usually more severe at any age. And then within Europe, individuals of Eastern European descent have a higher prevalence of high blood pressure than other groups. Things you can control: being overweight. If we maintain our weight of body mass index, the BMI, between 18 and 24.9, that is where we want to hang out there, at that weight or that body mass index, okay? Being physically inactive, as we talked during the healthy lifestyle reset, it is just a minimum of 30 minutes a day for most days a week to be active. And for drinking too much alcohol, we can reverse that by following the modification of men no more than 2 drinks per day and women no more than 1 drink per day. Eating too much salt or sodium. The guideline here is less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day will help in reducing those risks. And taking oral contraceptives, because it impacts your hormone levels, definitely work with your physician on that, on what will work best for you. Now, consequences. So again, if that blood pressure goes uncontrolled, here are some things that could happen if that blood pressure is not controlled. So again, the high blood pressure is often the first domino in a chain or domino effect, leading to devastating consequences, such as stroke, as we mentioned again in the introduction. High blood pressure can cause blood vessels in the brain to burst or clog more easily. Vision loss. High blood pressure can strain the vessels in the eyes. Heart failure. High blood pressure can cause the heart to enlarge and fail to supply blood to the body. Heart attack. High blood pressure damages arteries that can become blocked. Kidney disease or kidney failure. High blood pressure can damage the arteries around the kidneys and interfere with their ability to effectively filter blood. And this could lead to being on dialysis. And then lastly, sexual dysfunction. This can be erectile dysfunction in men or lower libido in women. So again, high blood pressure in the Black community or African American community, again, disproportionately affected by this condition. So blacks, ages 35 to 64 are 50% more likely to have high blood pressure than whites. Blacks ages 18 to 49 are 2 times as likely to die from heart disease than whites. This is an article of how COVID-19 or the pandemic has impacted the Black community or African American community disproportionately. This is an article that was posted by Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and it says that high blood pressure is a leading underlying condition for those who have died from COVID-19. So in New York, which is the epicenter of the virus, 52% of people who have died from COVID-19 had high blood pressure. And those in Louisiana, 66% had high blood pressure. And it goes on to speak about, again, what we mentioned in the previous slide about Black Americans are 50% more likely to have high blood pressure. So, as I mentioned before, heart disease is not a part of heritage. And the quote, this is a quote here, the middle, by Dr. Michael Greger. He's one of the physicians in the whole food plant-based movement or initiative. And what he says is genetics load the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. And what that means is genetically, you may be disposed to a chronic condition, but it's the plant eating habits and lifestyle that causes the chronic condition to manifest in your life. This is, again, is what we talked about in the Healthy Lifestyle Reset webinar, the first session in the overview, when it talked about creating that environment for a healthy life or living at your optimal health, that we have all things in place so that we can live a healthier life. So just want to reiterate that. And if you have not listened to that, definitely go over to the YouTube page to see the Healthy Lifestyle Reset, and it's the session on overview that goes over that information. But again, what is in our heritage is a healthy heart, a strong body, and vibrant and delicious foods. So when we think about our food that we eat, the Southern diet, or soul food, if you will, is of fried foods and sugary beverages, and is often seen as the traditional food for many African Americans. But the African heritage diet goes further back in that, in fact, a healthier, more traditional model can be found by looking to the foods brought to the New World by Africans. And just another little plug here, the booklet that I had the opportunity to be a contributing developer of, or contributor of the development of, is the African Heritage Power Plate booklet. And it gives you a guide on the foods that our ancestors ate, the traditional way of eating. And during that time, when they ate closer to the traditional way, many of them had no chronic conditions as we do today. So again, that's another resource available for you. Again, going to the Healthy Lifestyle Reset webinar, that information is there for you. And I'll also leave a link to it in this webinar. So again, by following a balanced diet that emphasizes healthy plant foods, and it is low in salt, can lower your high blood pressure levels by 11.5 millimeters of mercury. And guess what? In less than 2 weeks, in as little as 2 weeks, I'll say it that way, you can see a difference in your blood pressure just by going plant-based, whole food plant-based at that, for as little as 2 weeks. More to come on that. So the next thing here are some tips, African heritage inspired tips for heart health. Boosting flavor with spices instead of salt. Going for seconds. So when you go for seconds, go for healthier choices. Go for your vegetables. Go for your fruit. Go for that as your second helping. Find real foods everywhere. And you can. It might be a little more costly at the corner store to get that banana, rather than reaching for that Danish. The Danish might be 25 cents or might be 50 cents. And, usually in the corner store, but you still can have it. It's not that you won't have access to it. You have access to it. It's a little bit more for a banana or any other fruit. Sometimes they have them right there at the register, but again, sometimes it's a markup. But again, buy unsalted peanuts or a piece of fruit, or at a lunch buffet, load up your plate with salads, vegetables, fruit, and beans. Jazz up your fruits like melons, berries, or mangoes for dessert. A great example of the dessert with the mangoes is through Old Ways. It's called an after chop. And what you do is mango, papaya, and you can add bananas if you want. If it's not in season, you can switch the vegetables. I'm sorry, forgive me. Switch the fruit that you add into this. It's in a sense a fruit salad. You're just doing different types of fruit. These are tropical fruit. So again, mango, papaya, you put a little bit of coconut shred in there. You may add some granola, or you may add just nuts in that. And then you have a little bit, just a little of coconut milk. And then again, just a drizzle of maple syrup. And that is an awesome, 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 delicious dessert. And it's just fruit. And then you can add crushed ice to water or sparkling water to make refreshing aids like lemonade. And then lastly, think of your dinner table as a healing table, a place where people come to share beautiful, fresh foods and reinforce a long, happy, and healthy life. So the resources that I shared here today came from American Heart Association, Intervent Health, Million Hearts, Old Ways Cultural Food Traditions, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. So again, I'll leave the link to each of these in the description below. If you're watching on YouTube, that information will be there for you to access and click on. So coming soon, a dinner and a movie, as well as a 2-week vegan jumpstart. Because from that blog and from watching the news to see how our community has been greatly impacted, disproportionately, should I say, impacted by COVID-19. But these underlying health conditions were before COVID-19. So to me, it bears an urgent action for us to change the narrative of this story for our community. So please stay tuned, because this is coming real soon. Just working out some logistics on getting it, marketing it to you, so you have the opportunity to join me on this journey to optimal health. Again, for us to change this narrative as it relates to us leading in every chronic condition. But again, as you see through COVID-19, because of those underlying conditions, it is really, again, I keep repeating myself, but disproportionately impacting our community. Okay, so stay tuned and stay connected to be in the know. So again, I am Deitra Dennis, your certified health coach, leading and guiding women of color to discover their healthy selves through coaching, nutrition, and cooking. And you can find Full Circle Health Coaching LLC on all of the media outlets, be it on the website, email, Facebook, and YouTube. And as I always say, you are the full circle. Within you is the power to create, nurture, and transform. Thank you again for tuning in to Wellness Wednesday. And today we talked about the pressure is on. And I challenge you to be sure that you're doing everything possible to control and manage your blood pressure. Until we meet again, happy Wednesday.